and I need my model as a reference point. I've allowed here a big lump of wood, so I need to start by getting that down a bit, and I'll pay attention to the upper surface of this wood and where the leg of the bird comes into the body. They're slightly different on each side. And I can allow for wood going over the toes, and here is this line here is where I've set in the horizontal. Additionally, I know where this corner here is coming up. It comes up between the toes and ends in a corner at the top. So this vertical line here is an important reference point. So I will get the top surface, get these reference points here, I will draw the toes in. But what I want to say before we start, just two things. One of which is that it's important to make the toes, the claws, the whole feet, a bit bigger than in the actual bird. The reason is because they tend to look smaller for some reason. So make them quite significant. The second thing as we go down here and start separating things out, don't undercut. This leg is going to be something about the size of this pen here. So it will eventually, very likely, be free underneath because it's circular. So we will undercut it, but don't do it for now. So okay, we'll get on and start taking some of this wood away.
So I've marked in the waste wood around the talons and excavating it with this quite deep gouge. So I'm now turning to finding the post in between the talons on one face. So I'm coming down here vertically with the grain, but you must be very careful to check which way the grain is lying, because you could work against the grain without meaning to and then dig in. So definitely make sure that you're working with the grain. Now once you've got one face sorted out, you can draw in the corner and then you can start excavating the second face. So again, you've got to make sure that you're going with the grain. If you're not sure, a good way of working is like this. You go across the grain here, so there's no problem going with or against it. It's not going to dig up. And there is the top point, the top corner, and that's a very important corner. So close up, you can see I'm working across the grain, and this way I'm quite sure that I'm not going to be digging with it. So here's that very top corner, very important point in the positioning of everything. So I've set that in with a mallet, and I'm going to remove a little bit of wood here to just establish the top face of the post. So turning back to the talons, we can gradually creep those back to get more of the shape itself. And you can see how they now overhang the post, so we have wood to curl the actual claws themselves, they're very talons, the ends, into the wood. So taking more wood away from the side of the talons, giving them a little bit of a shape, and bringing them over along the top of the post. And now here's this face, the front face of the post. I'm just cleaning that up a bit, and from here I can establish now quite accurately the line that runs along the top edge of the post there. So once we've done that, we've got the line going across, we can take more wood back behind the bird. So run the body of the bird round. So don't just excavate, think about where the bird is sitting, and underneath the tail and in towards the talons. It's quite a deep gouge, quite useful in there. So this is a little jig I made from an old credit card, and it gives me a sense of the 90 degrees on the top surface. So I use that around just to check my positioning. And now I can turn to the feet themselves and give that a bit of shape. So these have got to be the toes as they come in and towards the talons themselves. So we can come down and start giving the talons, instead of a blocky look, we can start pointing them so that the claws themselves come to a sharp surface. Pushing back. Remember not to make them too small, but at the same time you need to get the shape correctly. So nibbling down the side, working across the grain, always a good way to work to remove wood. And coming up inside. So we just do one talon at a time, pushing that division between the two toes, or whatever we call them, pushing that back, finding that top surface still. It's a useful little gouge. It's a number 10, just over 1/8 of an inch, 3 or 4 mil. So getting some refinement here into the legs and popper. So I'm not undercutting anything, that's really important. What I'm doing is just separating the toes. So they're still a bit rough, but I just want to make sure that everything's there in the right place. So this is a refining rather than a finished piece. So look for both sides and get the toes more or less, and the claws, the talons, more or less like this. This will do fine for the moment. And then we can stop and move on to the next stage.